That's probably the worst thunderstorm type storm I've ever seen. I mean, typical thunderstorms, usually 2 to 3 days you're wrapping up, done, lights back on, and this one was just a whole lot worse. A lot more trees and poles broke, and which is not typical. I mean, most of the time, like you said, it's tree limbs on the wire, maybe a piece of wire broke, maybe a tree here or there, maybe a couple broken poles, but this one was really bad.
The only other event that I've seen that could compare to this would be Irene from last year, and this being a thunderstorm seemed way worse than Irene did, and that was a hurricane. So I was surprised when I came in and saw the damage, because I was actually out of town when it happened, and then I came to work and saw all the damage, and it was really extensive, especially for a thunderstorm.
We're working with 19,000 volts in our hands. So I mean, that puts pressure on you, plus you're out in the heat, and the humidity and stuff is even worse.
Knowing that you're going to be out in the heat for all that time is mainly just keeping yourself hydrated, and when you do get to go home and rest, make sure you're getting as much rest as possible.
I mean, we have to stay focused on our safety all the time, because it could mean the matter of life and death. And the big thing the public can do is to try to help is, if you see us working, slow down, because a lot of people don't slow down when they go flying by. Somebody might get distracted and walk out beside the truck. If you slow down around us, that would be a big help. And also, if we're in the air working, if you want to ask this question, try to make sure that the bucket comes down. If you see us standing there by the truck, then that's fine to come ask a question. But if you see us working, try to let us finish, and hopefully the lights will be back on when we're done.
Sometimes it's hard to look somebody in the face and tell them that the problem's too extensive for the manpower that we have, and that it might not get turned back on for 2 or 3 days. And that was one of the hardest things for me.
It's always helpful for the customer to call in. And when they do call in, majority of the time, unless we're in a major event, they'll get an estimated restoration of time. On a large event, right up front, we do not provide an estimated restoration time until we do a good assessment. Our call centers take up to 100,000 calls an hour, and by receiving those calls, it helps us identify and locate where that trouble is. When a customer calls in and they go through our automated response, they can indicate their lights are out, and the more customers that call in, then we're able to pinpoint exactly the equipment and the type damages that we may have associated with that. So we're able to analyze very quickly with our trouble reporting system where the locations are, and then we can dispatch crews to those quickly to make sure that we can determine what the cause of the failure was and get the lights restored as quickly as possible.
A lot of people are coming up asking when the power is going to be back on, and you can sometimes give them an answer, but then other times you're not exactly sure, because there could be other problems upline that are preventing their power from coming on as well. So trying to answer the questions is sometimes hard, but you want to be as helpful as possible.
As we begin to bring back the main lines, we do also perform callbacks to our customers. And the reason that we do that, I may be bringing back a large group of customers, let's say 2,000 to 3,000 customers, but you may be served at an individual premise level. You may have damage in your backyard that I can't see off the main line, and it's essential that you call us to make sure, number one, when we do the callback, to determine whether your lights are on. And if they aren't on, then we need to know that, because then I can dispatch somebody out there for that individual premise level. So we bring back customers in large groups, but as we get further down to the individual level, some customers may not come back on that main line because they may have additional damages. That's why we do the callbacks. We may do it several times, but we want to make sure the customers have their lights on and we have not missed a customer.
There's nothing like working, 4 or 5, longer hours than that on one job, and as soon as you close that fuse in, hearing people yell and scream and cheer, that's the feeling that I look forward to during the storm, and that's what keeps you going.
We actually had to cut a span of wire down and leave a pole and a transformer laying on the ground, and left 4 houses out of lights and turned on 14 houses. And the 4 houses we left out, the people understood totally, and they said, "That's fine. You got our neighbor's lights on. We can go over there." So that was nice. Even though we had to leave their houses out because the pole was broken, we had to get a truck to take the pole in the next morning. So that was pretty good. Now that the storm's over, now we're trying to catch up with our work that we got behind on, and so that's another pressure issue that comes with the job from, yeah, we got all the lights back on, but now we got to catch up with our work that we fell behind on. So now we got another pressure issue, not so much getting the lights back on, but trying to catch up with our work we fell behind on.
It is critical that our customers notify us and let us know about trees that are not only in the main line, but also trees that are off the main line. From a right-of-way standpoint, for example, that tree may be rotten down at the bottom, or they may see that it's a dead tree and has a possibility to fall on our line. We want to make sure that we can send somebody out there and cut that tree down so that it does not cause us problems down the road. Every year we maintain the lines around our overhead facilities. Normally we have like a 30-foot right-of-way, so we'll trim those lines. We have basically a 3-year cycle that we currently work with. Whenever customers may see a possibility of a tree limb in a line and they contact us, then we'll send one of our foresters out to take a look at it and see, is it in the right-of-way and is it going to cause us issues down the road? But yes, we maintain those lines to make sure they are clear of right-of-way, so that from a reliability standpoint, it's not only on a day-to-day, but it also helps us during storms as well. There is a lot of discussion about underground lines as well as overhead, which is better. I mean, during a major event like this, I will tell you, though, from the standpoint of being in Northern Virginia, we're probably a little ahead of the curve from a lot of other locations. From the standpoint, about 65% of our customers are currently served underground today. So there is a huge benefit there. But when you look at the overhead lines, you can see them, they're visible. So where we got trouble, we can see that. And also keep in mind that every underground service is fed from some overhead source. Every underground, any subdivision. And then from an underground standpoint, the underground itself may last 20 to 25 years, but if we have a restoration event, it's going to take much longer to restore those lights during any restoration. If I've got a fault or I have to replace underground cable, or I got to transfer equipment that fails, it takes much longer to be able to replace that and get those facilities up to grade. If we got trees that are in the right-of-way, they could still uproot those underground lines. And from an overhead perspective, as I indicated earlier, you can see the damage right away. But the pros would be, from an overhead standpoint, it's easier to be able to target where we need to send resources. Underground, sometimes it takes longer just to be able to determine where that fault is or where that problem is. And it may take an hour, it could take as long as 6 hours, or it could take over a weekend sometimes where we got to replace all the cables. So there's both benefits, there's pros and cons to both. And I think that's something that we'll continue to look at. We've done some undergrounding in some locations where it makes a lot of sense, where we got back lot, and we're able to get permission from the landowners and get right of way. There's a lot of things that go into making sure that when we try to establish something underground, it's not a matter of just placing it underground. We've got to go to our customers and get permission from them as well. When you think about transformers, you got to have a transformer somewhere to be served, and it's got to be on somebody's property, and not everybody wants a transformer on their property. So there are benefits to both. And as I indicated, 65% of the services here, customers are fed from underground, which is a real benefit, I think, in Northern Virginia to begin with.
Thank you for joining us today on Vienna Tyson's TV. We'll see you next month.